Mm.
What's going on, everyone? Back in the hosting chair this week. Ben, you did a great job last week. We're gonna toss it around to more. Oh, he's gone.
Sometimes
More of you guys should host. I shouldn't do this every week.
You started recording and then all of a sudden it just crashed and restarted. So
Sure.
Morbius too.
No, Ben just couldn't take the compliment. He got a little heated.
It's too cool. Too cool for.
I didn't hear the compliment.
too cool for our topic of conversation tonight. The long-awaited sequel to Morbius. Sorry.
Can't believe we had to wait 3 weeks.
2 more movies.
So Ben teased it at the end of last week's episode. We're talking about Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Declan just walked out of the theater this time. So Declan, your thoughts immediately.
I did not expect to like it this much. Like I don't know. I understand if the thing is, it felt unabashedly Sam Raimi. Like it felt like a Sam Raimi film. And I kind of loved that. Like I loved how like parts of it were like fucking weird and like off the walls. And I Sam Raimi's like touch over everything, I felt like just made it was already a good like film, a good story. Like his presence just like lifted everything up for me. So I honestly recency bias is undoubtedly playing a role in it, but it felt like it was at the very least on the upper half of the MCU in terms of quality. And I thought this was great. Honestly.
You were just telling us before we started recording how disappointed you were that there was no Everything Everywhere crossover.
Honestly, like I while trying to avoid spoilers, I like thought I saw somewhere someone say like, "Oh my gosh, is Jamie Lee Curtis in this?" Or like implied she cameoed in it, and so a part of me was like, "Oh, is that one of the jaw-dropping cameos that's supposedly in this movie or something like that?" Now, of course, that's literally impossible because I imagine the production on both films were wildly different. So I don't know.
A24 presents Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
That would be amazing.
That would actually be a really sick film.
Be a really good film, yeah.
Yeah. But no, so Jamie Lee Curtis didn't cameo. But no, I would say my biggest disappointment was mainly that Bruce Campbell didn't play every single character in the film. That was a major
I love this character.
So because of that, I have to give it a 0.
Pizza Papa always gets paid.
Declan, did you watch the end?
Yes, I did. Of
It's
course.
over.
The final.
That was a fantastic final.
That is the most Sam Raimi thing you could possibly come up with. You know, you got a bunch of people that are waiting. They're like, "Oh, the multiverse. Maybe there's a cameo. Maybe there's something." And then Bruce Campbell comes up.
That's
over.
That's on par, if not better, than the tag at the end of Spider-Man: Homecoming, where you get Steve Rogers saying, "So you're learning one of the most important skills that a person or a student or a soldier can have, patience. Sometimes it doesn't always pay off." This was neck and neck for funniest tag.
Both of those were.
I like the Bruce Campbell one more because I am a huge Sam Raimi fan. Campbell is great in everything. He's got a movie, sort of like Unbearable Talent, called My Name is Bruce. I don't know if you guys.
Oh, I've been meaning to see that.
It's about Bruce Campbell. He is Bruce Campbell. And these people call him up because there's a haunting in their small little town, and they think that Bruce Campbell actually fights zombies. So he's got to show up, and then it's.
I have, and maybe I'm just blanking on something I've seen, but I have yet to see a movie where an actor plays a fictionalized version of themselves and have it not be at least a little funny. Like it works for Nicolas Cage, obviously, as we talked about a couple weeks ago.
I got it.
It works for Neil Patrick Harris in all of the Harold and Kumar films.
You can't tell me Patton was comedic?
Which one?
Patton.
Okay, fair enough.
Patton.
Fair enough. So yeah,
like an
this
extreme outlier though.
this movie, I mean, the MCU, you know, it has its strengths, it has its weaknesses. For me, they're largely strengths. But to
That's an
allow,
understatement of the year for you, given your
how
like
do you
Marvel
mute
footage.
someone?
Listen,
Declan, I'm sorry that this
son.
movie
I'm
dived
just
right into the
stating the
action and
fact
there was no
that if
exposition.
Kevin Feige said, like, if Kevin Feige asked you to like give your kidney, you'd be like, Kevin, absolutely, man. Hey, could you read my script? And then he'll just leave you on red, but you'll still send him his kidney.
Declan, was this movie better or worse than Guardians 2?
Listen.
I actually want the answer to this.
That's a good question. You know, I am going to say fuck you all and all that. Oh yeah, censor that for YouTube so we don't get demonetized. I'm gonna say recency bias is really hard. They're both supreme quality. I feel
No, they're
like
not.
I hate you so much. I feel like Multiverse of Madness is just a little bit better than Guardians 2, because Guardians 2 is very like self-contained tale, while Multiverse of Madness has such a massive scope for its story, and I like that. You know, I thought that's a fun.
I do want to mention that this has been both. I've seen it as a criticism. It's not really a pro at all, but the criticism is like you need to watch, you know, some of the other stuff, especially WandaVision, to really get the story.
Basically a WandaVision sequel.
Yeah.
And
more so even than a Doctor Strange sequel.
Honestly,
yeah.
true. Yeah.
I didn't really get that. I mean, it is a fair criticism to a point, but it's like weird to have that as a criticism for any Marvel film, because
especially at this point,
like you need to watch. I mean, come on, you go in to see like Avengers, Infinity War, and Endgame without seeing, you know, 10 movies.
What I would say is, for the Sam Raimi super fans who haven't been keeping up with the MCU for 10 years, who want to go see Sam Raimi's new film and suddenly realize they need to like watch a mini series, and also,
of course, to be fair, you don't need it that much. It gives you a little background on the character. But the best thing about the movie for me is, while it was, you know, centered around some of the stuff that was established, like the multiverse and stuff, the movie itself plays somewhat like a Sam Raimi film, like regardless of the connections and the cameos. It's just a wild ride. And that was the part that I most enjoyed. Was it's 2 hours, which is somewhat short for a Marvel film these days. But it never felt dull. You know, the pacing, I thought, was always like, it was always moving in a direction. The moment it stopped, it felt like it actually had an emotional moment.
I'm going to disagree with you there. I think the pacing, largely in the first act and the third act, the second act, I have no notes. Love the second act of the movie. But the first act with the setup, and then the third act with the climax, there were some pacing issues for me. But at the same time, Ben, to your point, the runtime of the movie is 126 minutes, 206. It does not feel 206. It goes on a long time in the best possible way. It feels longer than 2 hours, but you're only getting 2 hours worth of story, and that works surprisingly really well for the movie.
I won't lie, I am shocked that it was 2 hours. Like I don't know what to think about that, but I'm genuinely
like
surprised.
There are some MCU movies like Spider-Man No Way Home. That's 2.5 hours. No Way Home is 2.5 hours. It doesn't feel like 2.5 hours. Avengers Infinity War is 2.5 hours. It feels like 2.5 hours. Eternals feels like, you know, a goddamn year. But you know, that's a whole other point entirely. But the thing about this movie is that you had so much ground to cover. And granted, it's not, for me, the multiverse of madness that I was expecting. You really only, other than the montage of Strange and America Chavez flipping through, you know, a dozen universes on their way to Earth 838, it's not really the multiverse of madness. It's Strange goes to a couple other universes. Which, you know, I was a little bit disappointed by. I think I was expecting honestly, I was expecting the works, which I would have been a little bit, mixed feelings about, because it's a little bit of a quick turnaround from Endgame to go into something huge again. And I think that Multiverse of Madness is really just the first step of the multiverse, in how it'll play out in the MCU. But I would be lying if I said I wasn't expecting Ryan Reynolds to show up as Deadpool, or Hugh Jackman as Logan.
Yeah.
Or even Tobey Maguire again.
I was a little bit hoping / expecting for even not even like him actually appearing, but just like a shot of Tobey Maguire or something like that. Like I was a little bit. I'm not disappointed.
Yeah, Mysterio. It's traveling across the dimensions.
What?
Bruce Campbell was supposed to be Mysterio.
Yeah. No, I was
Mysterio.
I was hoping for
this is something that Max and I talked about the other night, after we each saw the movie, Thursday night after we each saw the movie, for Thursday night opening. And it's that in Spider-Man Far From Home, Mysterio, Quentin Beck, says that, and Max, correct me if I'm wrong here, but he says, "I'm from Earth 833." And the universe that Strange spends the most time in this film is 838. That feels too close to be a coincidence.
It's just
he also
weirdly close.
That it was Earth 616.
Yeah, that's always the
that's one of those moments,
Marvel universe
comic book moments that is you don't have to think too hard about it. And the one thing I will say about the Multiverse of Madness is
the one thing.
Well, yeah, there's many things, but to your point, while I did expect more cameos and more universes, I was actually happy that there wasn't.
Yeah,
it felt like a more consistent story, regardless of. I know some people had issues with the character development of different people, but if you added more universes, more cameos, I mean, you wouldn't have a movie anymore. It's
when I saw the movie for the second time, I went in 3D on Tuesday, which was really cool. IMAX 3D or Cinemark XD 3D, excuse me. But when I saw it for the second, the action sequences and the visuals alone worth seeing in 3D.
That's good to know. That's good to know.
It's not a movie that I think I would have wanted to see in 3D the first time, but worth seeing on the big screen in 3D. But anyway, when I went to see the movie a second time, knowing that I wasn't going to get all of those cameos and knowing what the story was, I found it to be a much better film than I did the first time. I walked out of the movie last Thursday night with, admittedly, I loved it, a little tinge of disappointment, just because of how hyped I got for this movie. And then seeing it just for what it is, it's a very, very strong film.
Yeah. And can I also I gotta say one thing, sort of building off of that. I must say I would understand people not liking this, but for me, I kind of loved the audacity of including Mr. Fantastic and Professor X,
including all of them.
And then
let's talk about the Illuminati scene, because that's my favorite scene in the movie.
Actually, I did want to point out that was the thing where I was pleasantly surprised. Not seeing the cameos, I really didn't mind, because I know plenty of these things will come up. There's plenty of other universes. That's clearly the direction they're going with the MCU, so you can't spoil it all in one movie. But the thing that I was really pleasantly surprised, and I didn't think was going to happen, was how much, like you said, Declan, how much Sam Raimi there was, how much horror elements. It's not a horror movie. It's not, pushing the limits of PG-13 that crazy, but
it does have moments that are a bit
it has some moments. But
when the eye flew out of the monster, I was a bit like, whoa.
That wasn't
comical.
Not in the sense of being hardcore, more just
I will say this.
More.
I did not expect Wanda moved for about especially the times when she was haunting people and chasing them. she moved like a zombie from the
Yes.
That was exactly what he was going for. And
Yeah, I love
Doctor Strange is a zombie at the end. I mean, we saw the zombies in the trailers and stuff, but I didn't really know how much like she's going around, and it's horror shock. It's not like MCU
Well,
shock.
Ben, to your
comes
point,
out-
the tunnel chase
Mhm.
with the jump scare as the door closes, the water's dripping in slow motion. You get those close-ups on Strange and Christine and America, and then suddenly Wanda with the glowing red eyes pops out from the side in another close-up. That is taken directly from the Horror 101 playbook.
Oh, yeah.
And it works so well. I mean, granted, it's a little predictable because you know she's chasing them and you know she's going to catch up to them, but you don't know when in the moment that it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think he held on to the sort of quieting of the sound and slowing everything down probably a little bit too long, but it ended up working in its favor because, George, like you said, I had no idea when. I knew it was going to happen. I just didn't know when. And it could have gone for like another 30 seconds and I still would have been sitting there like on the edge of my seat, getting ready to see Wanda pop out of nowhere or, bust the door down or something.
Like you said, one of the things that I do love about Sam Raimi is it's sometimes he does like comedic jump scares where it is too long. It's on purpose.
Yeah.
Which is like, I'm waiting. But he's got a very unique horror style. It's always with him. It's never been straight horror.
So it's always sort of
always
like
horror comedy.
Like I feel like I've seen people like describe it as like 50s horror inspired in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
Like it's intentionally
some really messed up scenes and juxtaposed with some like very comedic ridiculousness. Evil Dead is like more of a horror focused film, and then he goes to Evil Dead 2, which is almost a complete comedic version of it.
Yeah, if Evil Dead 2 is, if you haven't seen Evil Dead 2 and you've probably heard people recommend it, I also recommend it. There's no other film quite like it. It's a good time.
Well, I mean, I'm thinking of another horror scene in Multiverse of Madness was when they figured out that Wanda was using the reflections of mirrored surfaces.
When she comes out of the gong.
When she comes out of the gong,
that
was
like
one of the coolest things in the entire movie. I just thought it looked amazing, and the premise of it and sort of how the scene unfolded was so cool. And the way that she sort of like bent herself out of the gong was definitely very.
It was straight up from the ring.
It was awesome.
Let's also like I gotta say let's quickly talk about Wanda because I feel like this is such an interesting film for her. I remember reading it was a video, but I remember seeing a video of a guy sort of making predictions for Multiverse of Madness, and he made the prediction that Wanda was being set up to possibly be the new main villain. Like he pointed out that Multiverse of Madness is mom, and
it's a bad take. I'm sorry.
What is it?
It's a bad take.
I don't know. I think given how much motherhood is important to her, like that wasn't his only thing.
Wait, do you mean the big bad of like the MCU or just of the film?
Like
because if it's of the MCU, that's horrible.
That's
if
a
it's
bad
of the
take.
movie, that's exactly what happened.
Okay. I you know what? I don't want to misquote it. I can't remember exactly, but nonetheless, setting up Wanda to be a villain and all that. But then when I saw the first trailer, I was like, that guy got it wrong. She's clearly being set up to team up with Doctor Strange and all that. And so I was like caught off guard in a like good way. I wasn't actually fully expecting her to be the main antagonist of the movie. I should have, but I wasn't. I was
the trailer sells you a different movie than what you see.
Yes, that is.
I do think each time I watched the trailer though that they released or the trailers, it got more and more obvious that she was going to be the villain and not Mordo. Because
I kind of do
I
that.
don't I don't think he wasn't developed enough as an antagonist in the first Doctor Strange movie, and then coming off of WandaVision, where there wasn't really that much of a resolution to that story. There are lots of loose ends with what she was going to do next with her kids. She obviously started using the Darkhold. There's just so much left there, and I think waiting until like the next big team up movie in Quantum Mania or whenever the next one is would be too long. And so it made sense for her to take a larger role in this film. And one of the synopses that was put out there was that friend turned foe or something like that.
For me, the initial trailer, it just dominated too much of what I was expecting the movie to be. Like it was like, oh yeah, she's the other person in the other hero in this movie. That's just what she's going to be, and I just didn't think like to question that.
Like the roadie to the Iron Man movies, or the Sam Wilson to the Captain America movies.
Precisely. Or the Doctor Strange to Spider-Man No Way Home, kind of, like I was genuinely expecting her to be in that role. And so the fact that she was like
exactly
up the villain is
I knew she was going to be the villain. And the reason why is because she read the Darkhold at the end of WandaVision. I am a big Doctor Strange fan. I love him. He is a really stale character in some regards, though. But the best thing that he does is he keeps making messes. I mean, that is essentially his character. He's a like egotistical, pompous asshole, higher than the levels of like Tony Stark, where he is willing to like risk. And you see this all the time through the movie, through What If. He has no regards for like the
reality
of things. He just thinks so smart that like it doesn't matter. And you see what it does to him. Now, Wanda using the Darkhold, Wanda is a being from Chthon. That's the comics they sort of established in this movie, but essentially Chthon, this like big elder god, like Lovecraftian deity essentially. He puts his power into Wanda before he pieces out to nowhere. Not the celestial head, just some other dimension.
Nowhere without the K.
Yeah. But she is basically like corrupted by him, and the Darkhold also has his energy, so it's pretty easy for her to be corrupted. I look at this less as like a character arc for her. I know people were upset, like that her arc in WandaVision got destroyed, proved meaningless or whatever. But I mean, the truth is that the book corrupts people.
Building on that, Ben, I think in this movie, based on the trailers and based on what we knew from the end of WandaVision, we knew that the Darkhold was going to play a big role in this film, especially based on that post-credit scene in WandaVision. I think what I was expecting for the character, I think I might have expected her to take on a villainous role in the film, but I think I expected her to break the corruption sooner. Like maybe not when that sorceress stabs and destroys the physical copy of the Darkhold. That would have been too early in the film. But maybe when she's at WandaCore with Wong, who, by the way, I expected Wanda to kill Wong in this film. I don't know about you guys.
I thought he would survive.
I'm so glad Wong has carried on.
Wong is very important. You can't kill Wong. That's illegal.
Well, in WandaVision, Agatha Harkness tells Wanda, "Your power exceeds that of the Sorcerer Supreme." Wong's the Sorcerer Supreme. So I was like, "Oh no, not my buddy, not my buddy Wong."
And I want to circle back just to Wanda for a second, which is Wanda. It's hard for her to break the corruption. I mean, it's hard for Doctor Strange to break the corruption through all of themselves. But the biggest thing is Wanda gets her powers from Chthon, the same place that the Darkhold gets its powers. Her powers are innately evil. essentially.
Mm.
That is the way that her powers are set up. They're reality changing, but it's chaos magic. It's
It's
technically evil.
her destiny
Just
to
imbued
rule or
with
destroy
it.
the cosmos.
So
But George, I think, what sort of like what you're saying of how you hope that she would break sooner. I get that, right? Because you want to see her kicking ass alongside Doctor Strange and America Chavez instead of trying to kill them. But it feels earned at the end of the movie that she is now, I'm assuming, essentially free from the grasp of the Darkhold, and that going forward she will use her powers to do the right thing. And I think having America Chavez be the one to sort of push her over the final step and get her across the finish line to show her what she had become was also great too. And I don't have an issue with Wanda being the villain of the story. I think it needed to happen. Not because I think she was necessarily incorrect in her wanting to be reunited with her children, even though they were imaginary in Westview, but existed in other universes, right? She just wants to be a mother. It's not like she just went on a genocidal rampage for the sake of doing it. She did it for a purpose. And, it coming out on Mother's Day weekend is also great too. And kind of good marketing. And the acronym, Declan, you brought it up, is MOM. But yeah, so lots of great elements with Wanda there. And I do think her sort of Westview through Multiverse of Madness storyline, I would sort of say that it's wrapped up, and she can now use her powers for good.
And
It is interesting,
props
though.
to,
Can I just very quickly say?
go ahead.
It's interesting how, though, in all of this, in this entire film about Wanda looking for her family, that there's like no appearance or reference to Vision, like whatsoever. I don't know. I found that a little interesting in retrospect. It's like
that's what I kind of got from the corruption, though. Like, I mean, Kassan is like a demon, like Mephisto, like everyone talks about. Shuma Gorath sort of appears in this movie. I don't know what that is.
Hey, we're not allowed to say that. It's Gargantos.
Yeah,
we're not allowed to say Shuma Gorath.
Like an extremely powerful, like on the same level of Chthon. So it doesn't make sense that was the actual Shuma Gorath. I don't know what that is, but I hope they return.
So one note, Declan, on Vision. Sorry, George, but just that even in Westview, Vision is a figment and a creation of Wanda's imagination, and yet he still acts as the voice of reason, stopping her from sort of going all out and going completely nuts and killing everybody. So
sort of House of M style.
Yeah, so it's purposeful, I think, that she doesn't mention or create a new Vision, because he will always be her moral compass when she has chaos magic sort of coursing through her veins.
And he tells her to like release everybody. He gets her to basically release everyone. So perhaps that somewhat selfish desire to like be with her family and do whatever it takes is still inside of her. She doesn't fucking her out of it.
One more note on Wanda. I think this film and the arc from honestly the end of Endgame, when she is blipped back and she almost kills Thanos, then she's talking to Clint Barton at Tony Stark's funeral, and then into WandaVision and Multiverse of Madness. I think this is the performance that we get from Elizabeth Olsen really speaks to how much she cares about this character. She's a big fan. Obviously, she did research before Age of Ultron into the Scarlet Witch comic history, which, Ben, you've gotten into a lot. But the way that she has developed this character, it feels earned for her to take this step. And, if she's going to resume, get back on the lunchbox in a post Multiverse of Madness world, I think that this experience of WandaVision and Multiverse of Madness strengthens the character of Wanda as a hero.
Yeah.
And I think Elizabeth
Absolutely.
Olsen has been so strong in this role since the beginning in Age of Ultron that as a performer, that level of familiarity with the character combined with the arc that she's had, honestly, 2 different arcs going from villain to hero, and then the post Endgame Wanda. All of that combined is going to make this a character. It's going to make this character so much stronger and so much more well-rounded going forward in the MCU, because, you know, that red flash at WandaCore when she's destroying the castle, Wanda ain't dead, folks.
No, and you got the multiverse. But the one thing I did want to say regarding Wanda is she makes a very good villain for this film, and just for Doctor Strange in general, because she is a perfect foil for him. I mean, they both do things without thinking about it. They both completely mess up, realities in the multiverse because of their own selfish desires. I mean, Doctor Strange did it in What If. He's done it in all the other realities and Multiverse of Madness. And I think him facing her really shows him how selfish he is, how ignorant he is, how arrogant he is, and going to these other realities and seeing like one person who is sort of good, who has managed to just completely destroy another universe. He risks destroying another universe to save half of one universe. The numbers don't even add up, but it just sort of shows how selfish he can be. And similarly, Wanda, it ends up being a goal for her too, like finding her children. She's not even thinking about like the life with her children anymore. It's just a goal. Get, America Chavez, she can go over here, find her children. Similarly, that's the way that Doctor Strange looks at things. He doesn't think about like, oh, well, all these people will die. It's just, I've got to beat Thanos. I've got to beat this person. And it's the same with him in the comics, to the point where sometimes he becomes like Wanda, where he'll borrow power from like dark sources.
Well, that's
See
the
that in the
entire concept
Yeah.
of What If episode 4.
I was genuinely surprised a little bit that there was no reference to that version of Doctor Strange at all. I was expecting him to appear.
I didn't expect it to show up because technically his universe is dead.
That's true. That is true.
And that wasn't even an incursion. That was just him destroying that universe.
Also, Declan, I think I get your point though, right? Is because we saw it in the trailers and we made all these assumptions about what things looked like. And we did get another Doctor Strange that did sound a little bit more evil and looked probably like what he would look like.
We learned that Doctor Strange creates an incursion, right? We don't necessarily know which universe. So I was curious, and this is my fan theory, that universe that's being destroyed, that has that evil Doctor Strange, that's the one that he destroyed. And he's so pissed off at all these Doctor Stranges and like pushing them off of buildings, is because a Doctor Strange destroyed his universe. I mean, that makes the most sense to me.
It's a good theory. Yeah.
That's an interesting one. That is a very interesting one.
I like it.
Makes him a lot more human too, in a way.
Yeah. One thing that I really wanted to talk about with you guys, and this is changing gears a little bit, is the Illuminati scene. And we touched on it earlier.
Yes.
But it's a huge moment, not just for fan service with the cameos, but it's a huge moment in the story because we see just how powerful Wanda is in that moment. What did you guys think of that scene, both with the introductions and the fan service, and then with the fight? Because I got a lot of thoughts, so I'm going to let you guys go first.
Yeah. I meant to say this earlier, but then I think we switched gears a little bit. I kind of loved it because I almost feel like, and this is weird for me to say, but I feel like it was almost like it became anti-fan service a little bit. Like I said, in the fact that they straight up murdered the characters.
Yeah.
Like that was so like, oh shit, that I kind of loved it. Like it was so like, oh, here's here's all these characters. And it's like, oh man, new characters to come in, and then they die into Scarlet Witch. It was a bit hardcore, but I honestly, because I wasn't expecting it, I feel like it made what it was like this is pretty cool, seeing Professor X again. I feel like it made it better for me. I understand people not liking it, but for me, I really enjoyed how it like went against like what you would assume would happen in that sort of scene,
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just like, oh, this is the introduction to Fantastic Four. Oh wait, never mind. I mean, maybe it is.
Yeah, I'm definitely on your side there. When I first saw that revealed, and I was completely down with seeing all these cameos. I'm a big Mr. Fantastic fan as well.
The fact that it wasn't the 2005 cast for Fantastic Four made
it was a fan cast.
Horrible film.
I was all for
0 out of 10. No, I'm kidding.
But yeah, no, I kind of loved it, it was anti-fandom, which is like, and it reminded me, I think I told George about this, but it reminded me of What If. The multiverse allows you to do things like that, and I love that you can show plenty of different characters and stuff, but you can also kill them off in like horrible ways. Whatever you want, which I thought Sam Raimi did perfectly. I mean, it pushed it more in the horror direction, which was unique for Marvel and fitting for Sam Raimi. And I mean, certainly Black Bolt Death was like kind of jarring. I mean, that was the first one.
Was he played by the same
guy from Inhumans?
Oh my god, from the like terrible
terrible Inhumans TV show.
Oh my god, wait, that's actually hysterical.
But I think one thing that I also wanted to point out is just like the complete mastery of her powers that Wanda has in that scene, or that whole fight sequence. Because she kills them in different ways. It's not like she just tries to take over their minds. She does it. She obviously easily kills Black Bolt.
She kills
Mr.
each of them with their own
into
powers.
string cheese. Cuts Captain Carter in half with her shield, which was fucking nuts. And then drops a building on Captain Marvel, on Monica Rambeau,
and
a statue. And then she sneaks into Charles Xavier's mind and snaps his neck.
She doesn't snap his neck. She tears his head in half. There's a slow motion cut that I saw on Twitter.
Oh, really?
Oh my god.
It's not snapping his neck. It's tearing the two top and bottom of his head.
Okay, I did not get that. That makes it even, that's insane.
It's
insane.
Brutal.
But like when he comes out and he just sort of falls down, he's just sort of limp.
Like I think I mentioned this to George. I was slightly expecting it to not actually be Professor X, because I remember seeing somewhere someone said, and I can't back this up,
Captain Picard.
But that,
I think I said that.
No, but it was that Patrick Stewart wanted Logan to be his last performance as Professor
You did say
X.
that,
yeah. And so I was surprised, but then he died, and I was like, oh, okay, so maybe because he died, that was why.
It is such a fan, it comes in on the yellow chair that's famous for being in the comics.
The big
And they're making
chair.
X-Men 97. They're remaking that, which is what it came out of.
And then, they did the animated series theme, along with a few other. Danny Elfman did a great job with the score. It felt very old school superhero in a lot of times, and it reminded me of Spider-Man or like Tim Burton's Batman and stuff.
Yeah, I got a lot of Tim Burton's Batman because again, that's Danny Elfman. But the credit theme really stood out to me. The opening sequence, the chase through the I want to call it the Nexus of all realities because that's what it's called in What If, and that's what it's called at times in the comics. I don't remember off the top of my head what it's called, but the place where the Book of Vishanti is.
Yeah, Gap Junction. That's what they call it in the movie.
Yeah. Thank you, Ben.
Gap, the GAP. That's where you
but that opening chase sequence has a great score, and then the first time we see Wanda dreamwalk, where you get
Yes.
the drum kit in there and it's
Yes.
driving, you see Mordo, the great way that they overlay the clips with Wanda and Strange and then Mordo and then Wanda, and it goes all over the place, and you got that great driving score in the background. But yeah, the Illuminati scene, before we talk too much about the score, because that's another great part of this movie. Danny Elfman, not missing a beat from
bad terms. So it's great to see him again.
Danny Elfman has twice, and he has twice not missed a beat from the composer who did the first film. This time from Michael Giacchino, and Avengers Age of Ultron from Alan Silvestri, and he hasn't missed a beat either time. It's been unique to himself, but he also pays into what's been done before. Phenomenal composer. Anyway, the Illuminati scene. The introductions, I loved them. Not exactly the lineup I think I was looking for.
It was a weird lineup.
Yeah,
Those
I mean,
are
I haven't seen the ABC Inhumans TV show, and probably for good reason.
Illuminati is pretty accurate. Only you have to exchange Reed Richards for Iron Man. And I don't know if Captain Carter is there.
So
I
glad
think Steve
Tom
Rogers
Cruise wasn't in
is-
this movie.
Yeah, maybe Steve Rogers.
Was that
Like the leader of each of the groups is part of the Illuminati.
What's that, Ben?
Each of the leaders of the groups, like the leader of the Avengers, the leader of the Fantastic Four, is supposed to be like a member of the Illuminati.
Leader of the X-Men.
Yeah.
Leader of the
Yeah.
Inhumans.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sorcerer Supreme.
I
So
didn't make that connection. That is totally the case. Oh man, wow.
So-
I think Iron Man's in it. So I don't know if Captain
He
America-
is.
Well, the
Yeah.
rumor was that Tom Cruise was going to be a Tony Stark variant. I'm so glad that wasn't the
Egregious.
case.
That would have been egregious.
That would have been
just
sorry.
So
would've been a bit-
disrespectful.
He's gonna take his time out to do that after firing bands and the Top Gun at the time.
Yeah, I loved that scene. I loved the fan service of the introductions. You know, my crowd on opening night was a little bit subdued, which was disappointing, but you
Mine
still
was
got
great.
cheers.
Mine was too. It was a bunch of
Mine was
kids.
great.
You got cheers.
Bro, we cheered at the
for-
Marvel logo. No,
I
back it
got
up. We
really
cheered. I was
cheered.
talking to George. People cheered.
Y'all got to talk
during
to
the
each other
Nicole
more.
Kidman.
You keep saying that, you know, you talk to George. Talk to each other. Come on.
Yeah. Anyways, they cheered at Nicole Kidman's AMC intro.
Of
Like
course.
that was my crowd on opening night. If that gives you any sense of what I went into, which was
I
amazing.
went to see it opening night with our buddy Chip, and
Mhm.
you know, Chip just watched the entire MCU for the first time for this movie, and the Marvel Studios logo started playing, and he leaned over to me and he was like, "I've never been in a theater for this. This is so cool." And I'm like, "Bro, just watch the movie." But then like the Reed Richards introduction, Professor X, obviously, but those introductions through, you know, their deaths was just great fan service. And then, as you said, Ben and Declan turning it on its head by killing them off right away, because you do have the multiverse. You're going to see Reed Richards in the MCU. You're going to probably see Charles Xavier. You're probably going to see all of these characters. Live action Captain Carter is absolutely coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, Rambo, Lashana Lynch playing Maria Rambo as Captain Marvel.
She was great.
She was fantastic.
Yeah.
The only gripe I have with what is otherwise my favorite scene in the movie is that they killed off the wrong two first, because we've seen a super soldier with a shield and we've seen Captain Marvel's powers. I would have liked them. I mean, if they're going to kill off all four of those characters in sequence, I would have liked, you know, I'm never one to say less Lashana Lynch or Haley Atwell, but I would love to have seen more of Reed Richards using his stretching powers,
I
or
honestly-
Black
Yeah.
Bolt in
I
action.
think they did the right thing though, and I thought about this. I thought about that for a while because I am a big Reed Richards Fantastic Four fan, but at the same time, Black Bolt really powerful. You know, they don't get to show it in the film because sort of.
Well, they show it in the flashback to them
But like he's
dispatching their own
would
Strange.
actually just completely obliterate Wanda if he actually got to fight.
with one whisper from his mouth.
Yeah.
That
And Reed Richards is
The dude spoke when his mouth was sewn shut. Like,
that bit, I will say that bit.
what are you
Was,
doing?
I think one of the best. Like, I think I literally was like, oh, you know, when he. Like,
I mean, it's not every day that your mouth just
brain.
disappears.
No,
from your
that's
guy.
fair. But it was just like,
That guy's been through some shit, but as soon as he just like felt there was no more mouth there, he probably freaked the fuck out.
like
And
that.
then, you know, he tried to use his power
Yeah,
and it just
He
blew
didn't
out
even
his own
try.
head.
He just sort of like, oh,
that was in a good way. That was like, whoa, you know?
yeah.
And then the whole like melty element of the
Yeah,
side of his head.
the tuning
Yeah,
fork,
that
you know,
was
just goes off. It was so good though. I really loved it. And then with Reed Richards, like they
Stringy.
would show it in the film, and I talked to George about this. Like, oh, he's the smartest man alive. He is supposed to be like, you know, super smart, like Tony Stark on crack. You know,
Also
really
supposed to be a weirdo, and John Krasinski isn't a weirdo.
He is not supposed to be a weirdo.
Jan Gruffid in the 2005 film is a
he's a
weirdo.
He's
weirdo.
not a weirdo.
He's a weird guy.
But Reed Richards is not a weirdo. He's a nerd. There's a.
I mean, he did. There is the
No, Ben,
council.
we're nerds.
He loves science. He's not like, you know, going around, you know, like smelling.
Miles
people's
Teller
hair.
actually hit that note pretty well, to be honest, in the 2015. I don't
I
like
haven't
the
seen
movie,
that movie. I'm not watching that movie.
but you
I
don't need
saw
to.
Dr. Doom.
But Miles Teller was not bad.
Mm.
I stand by that.
Adam
I
Driver
think
for Doctor Doom? What?
Amen.
Haven't said that in about 20 episodes.
Haley Atwell for every character.
She's great.
Yes.
She is
She has a jetpack.
fantastic.
It's so cool.
I did want to finish my thoughts.
Sorry, Ben.
Richards.
Mm.
I said he was the smartest man alive, and I was like, oh, why would he give away, you know, Black Bolt's one weakness? Why is he just like throwing his arm? The biggest thing is Reed Richards, just like in the comics, he's really, really smart, but he does not have the Tony Stark level, like, oh, maybe, you know, this is dangerous. Believes in the good of a lot of people. And so when he saw Wanda, he didn't want to hurt Wanda. You know, he thought he could just talk it out. And then, you know, shit just went completely sideways. And then he just,
You know who
Spaghettified.
thought he could talk it out? Black Bolt.
Black Bolt.
yeah.
There you go. There you go.
So
R.I.P.
You know, one other character I just got to bring up that I guess is a little bit indicative of like maybe it somewhat. I don't think this is a flaw, but we haven't talked about Doctor Strange that much here.
Yeah.
I feel like I'll just very quickly say I think I liked his arc here. I was surprised that Christine was important for it. Like I was genuinely expecting Rachel McAdams to only be in that one scene of her wedding and then not be in the movie. And so the fact that she was actually still in the movie, I thought that was I thought that was cool.
well, I heard an interview with Rachel McAdams before I went to see the movie saying, oh no, Christine's like a real character this time. She's not pushed off to the side. Granted, it was a variant for much of the film, which I was a little bit let down by her and Mordo because they set up Mordo and they still have to resolve Mordo from the main Earth 616.
Mordo's like the main antagonist, like human antagonist. Everyone else is a creature from another dimension. So you got to hold on to him for a little bit.
Yeah. Strange. I was a little bit thrown off by his, you know, the comparison of his relationship with America Chavez to his relationship with Peter Parker in Spider-Man No Way Home, because I feel like he buys into this almost like reluctant father figure role for America really quickly.
Yeah.
And for Peter No Way Home, he's reluctant for a lot of that opening sequence. And even at the end, it's still very, you know, we're superheroes fighting on the same side, but you know, I'm not really that guy for you.
I think he looked at Peter. He even looked at Peter like in No Way Home. I mean, a lot of stuff he does, like he's really selfish. He casts a spell not to help Peter, really. He casts a spell just to prove that he can do it. I mean, that is like the weakness of Doctor Strange. That's why I say he's somewhat as a stealth character, as he needs to stay that way. Part of his problem is he's ridiculously powerful. Like, you know, he can just learn things and just do whatever. The old, you know, like 60s Doctor Strange was he was as powerful as you needed him to be, essentially.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But the one thing that kept coming back was like he would borrow power from this dimension, that dimension, and then it would come back to bite him when he didn't think it would. And that even
Well,
appears in this, like
That plays into this movie, yeah. With
where
the Book of
he
of
does,
Vishanti.
or the Book of Vishanti, but also like
He can get whatever power he needs.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
his I mean the dark hold and all that stuff. But going back to America Chavez, I really think like the early parts was not him necessarily like protecting her. It really shows like he was like the other Stranges, worried for the safety of his universe, and he thought it was his duty. She was more of a
MacGuffin.
yeah, well, a MacGuffin, but also like her power. He wasn't thinking about her more
Mhm.
power. Where he is, sympathetic to some regards, but that doesn't mean that like at his heart he's not thinking about that at the very end. Which was the way that I viewed it until he finally realized that every other Doctor Strange is like been doing terrible things and like destroying universes because they can't realize how stupid they are sometimes. Which
So,
honestly, slow character arc, but really important for Doctor Strange to realize.
Yeah. So final thoughts on Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness?
I wasn't expecting to not like it, but I liked it more than I thought I would. I thought, yeah, a great film.
Yeah. I liked it more than I thought I would.
Yeah. Glad to see Sam Raimi be Sam Raimi and make another film. It's been a while since we've seen.
Not full Sam Raimi, but like a lot more than I would have expected.
Exactly.
Part MCU, part Sam Raimi, which is good for me.
Yeah, go see it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. One more note on Sam Raimi before we wrap up here. I started to say this earlier and then we got sidetracked for 50 minutes. But the MCU is at its best when it lets its directors have their own take. Like James Gunn with the first Guardians film is a great example of that. Jon Favreau even with the first Iron Man film. And it's happened. Peyton Reed does a great job with the Ant-Man films. John Watts with Spider-Man. Sam Raimi has found a home now with Doctor Strange. It's the perfect director to take him forward.
Yeah, I hope they use more.
And shout out to Michael Waldron, the writer of Loki, who wrote this film. This was a big ask, and he delivered.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I would have liked a Loki tie-in. We were promised a Loki tie-in, and we didn't get one. Yeah, I like this a lot more the second time, but I liked it the first time, and it's a really, really well-made film. So that's gonna do it for this episode of the Unqualified Film Bros podcast. We've done 6 review episodes in a row over the last 6 weeks. So we're gonna have a little fun with an event episode next week. We'll let you know what that is when we start recording it next week. I'm not gonna give anything away, but it's gonna be a lot of fun. We're looking forward to it. Yeah, so that should just about wrap it up. Go see Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, playing in movie theaters right now. Have a good weekend, everyone.
Yeah.
Good night, everyone.